It's the John Phillips Show. Johnny's on vacation, but he's back on Monday. It's Randy Wang here. The phone number to join us is 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. You can email us at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. You can search for the John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts. You can also listen to my 5 o'clock show, The News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. If you're in the Bay Area and you want to give that a listen, go to kabc.com/newsblitz or search for The News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts. Our next guest is, in my humble opinion, the most exciting reporter running around Los Angeles right now. Fox 11's Matthew Seedorff. Welcome to the John Phillips Show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here, and I appreciate the warm welcome there.
Honestly, for the last few weeks, every single time I go on Fox 11's YouTube and I download a story and it's a Seedorff story, the first question I have is, do you get hazard pay?
I don't, and that's, it's part of the job, I feel like. It's the stuff that I enjoy doing, but also shout out to the photographers that are willing to put themselves out there with me, and they don't really get the credit that they deserve putting themselves in those situations as well.
Seriously, some of the footage that is on your reports is just incredible. So your photographers, they're just as brave as you. I wanted to have you on just to go through a recap of some of the insane stories that you've been covering over the last couple of weeks. But I figure we might as well start with last night, because that's a fascinating one as well, where we had this big standoff where you had anti-ICE protesters, the sheriff's deputies coming out to the shopping center in Lynwood, and it was all over a case of mistaken identity.
That's exactly right. So I got the call saying, that there may be some ICE agents that were in trouble in Lynwood and surrounded by protesters. And we heard that maybe they were spitting on them and that law enforcement was being called in for help. Did some digging, made some calls, and all of my sources were like, this doesn't sound like ICE. It doesn't sound like Border Patrol. Made a few more calls, and we found out that it wasn't. It was the TSA agents that were off duty eating dinner. Someone at the restaurant spotted them, thought it was ICE, and then all of a sudden dozens and dozens of protesters showed up and were heckling these TSA agents that were just trying to have dinner, to the point where they had to call the sheriff's deputies in to get help to leave.
Well, and then I watched your report. Not only was that going on, but when you were trying to get comment from the locals that were in there, the same protesters were trying to sabotage your reporting.
Yeah, well, we've had run-ins with them before, I guess you could say. So when we were walking up, I saw that the protesters, there were some stragglers still there, and I told the camera person, hey, just make sure you're recording, because, I want to make sure that if they don't want to speak with us, that we can leave here with something. We're trying to hear what they have to say, obviously, and give them, their chance to kind of say what happened or whatever. But yeah, when we walked up, we introduced ourselves, and they said, "Oh, we don't want to speak with you. You're with Fox," whatever. So, we recorded that, and then we just wanted to try to speak with other people in the area. We went in the restaurant, tried to talk with them, tell us what happened, tell us, where the TSA agents eating and all these things. And then one of the organizers followed me into the restaurant, and basically, I know a little bit of Spanish, más o menos, but she was telling them in Spanish not to speak with me, and I immediately told the worker, I know a little bit of Spanish and I understand everything that she was just saying. But yeah, anyway, I mean, essentially, no one would speak with us because of that. So
it was a wild situation. You could see that report on the Fox local app, or do what I do, subscribe to the Fox 11 YouTube page, which is, I listen to these things while I'm on my morning walk and prepping for this show. And every day, it seems, there is a new crazy Matthew Seedorff report, including just a couple of days ago, you're at this park in Hollywood that the residents don't want to go to because it's a hotbed for drug and gang activity.
Yeah, it's a mess, to say the least. And these residents had reached out to me saying nothing's been done. It's a gated park, and for whatever reason, Parks and Rec isn't closing or locking the gate at night. I think they would say it's probably resources. But residents say it's a hotbed for crime. They think it's gang activity, and we saw graffiti. The MS-13 logo was on the children's play set, tagged to it. And then we're walking around. There's a man who says he was not homeless but was inside a tent. He wouldn't speak with us. He said he was busy. I don't exactly know what was happening in there. But there was also piles of human waste, apparent drug paraphernalia everywhere. And then this same park is linked to a 15-year-old who died just a few years ago at a nearby high school about a half-mile away from fentanyl overdose that is linked to this park where it was purchased. So residents are fed up. They want something done. And honestly, it's to the point where they want the park removed completely. But, they don't feel like they're getting the answers that they deserve from city officials.
Things have gotten bad. When it's not that we want the park cleaned up, we don't trust the city to the point where we don't want the park at all.
Yeah, exactly. They feel like we're having the park there is a liability, and it just breeds all of these bad things that keep happening, drug activity, possibly gang activity, and they're like, we just want to get rid of it at this point.
Now, of course, speaking of parks, we've got to talk about your hit this week at MacArthur Park, where you were walking around with businessman John Alley as he was trying to do an expedition to find out if there were any guns or bodies possibly in the MacArthur Park Lake. And I knew this was going to be a good story when you started off the live hit with, we're actually a few miles away from MacArthur Park because it was too dangerous to shoot a live shot there.
Yeah, it is too dangerous, especially at night, just to set up your news truck or a camera. A lot of people just heckle you, and you don't know if the situation could escalate. But, yeah, talking about John Alley, he's done these stories with members of the homeless community here in L.A. where he'll relocate them back to families out of state. So essentially he says that, some families of missing loved ones were last seen near MacArthur Park. So he came up with the idea of trying to hire a sonar company that would come into MacArthur Park in the lake and, use sonar equipment to try to see what is in the lake. Well, the city says that he didn't have a permit, so he wasn't able to do that. So on Monday, the city park rangers met him there and his search team and basically said, you can't search the lake. You can't do that without a permit. And then they gave him a parking ticket. Mind you, there's all this illegal drug activity and all these other illegal things happening, but all these members of law enforcement are focused on him and his sonar equipment.
Yeah, I think that was the most outrageous part of the story. And even it wasn't just that, that Eunice Hernandez and Karen Bass shut down what he was doing. It's that this is the activity that the park rangers go after, not the nonstop illegal activity that's been going on that park for years and years and years. The drug dealing, the gang activity, the selling of stolen goods, none of that matters. But this is something they got involved with. That was quite outrageous.
Yeah, so you need a permit for sonar equipment, but you can smoke fentanyl or crack or whatever right next to it. Doesn't matter. So it's a double standard that, John Alley wanted to speak to as well, that it's really frustrating for a lot of people. And it's also similar issues where there's homeless encampments set up in parts of the city or RVs and all these things. And then residents get a parking ticket, when they're trying to get into the grocery store or whatever, they miss their parking meter by 5 minutes, they get a parking ticket, or there's people camping nearby.
We're speaking with Matthew Seedorff. He's a reporter for Fox 11. You can get him on X at Matt Seedorff, 2 E's, 2 F's. Now, let's go and move to another story you covered last week that we had a lot of fun with. People would expect a lot of things when you're talking about a neighborhood like Larchmont Village. You'd expect fancy cafes, expensive restaurants, difficult parking. But I don't think until you brought this to light that anyone knew that Larchmont Village in Hollywood was a hotbed for prostitution.
Yeah, this is disgusting. Of all the things I've done in recent weeks, this might be top of the list of possibly the most disgusting. Residents are finding used condoms, and I'll spare the details, but it's more gruesome than just that. Condom wrappers, other things associated with that, every morning outside their homes, on their driveways, on the sidewalks. And this is a block from an elementary school. So these residents are fed up, and they say it's been happening for so long that they've actually posted these yard signs in their yards warning people, hey, you're under surveillance. We can send this video to law enforcement, or they might send a letter to your house to warn your loved ones of what you're doing at night. But they say nothing is happening, so much so that, they contacted me. We did the story, And I just feel like they're so fed up, and they're not aware of any arrests taking place, and they feel like this could involve minors as well, which is even more sad considering human trafficking, sex trafficking, all that sort of stuff.
We're speaking with Matthew Seedorff, reporter from Fox 11. Now, a lot of people probably first started to notice what you were doing when you did this report a few months ago covering these tunnels in the Whittier Narrows, where apparently it's where people go to ditch stolen cars. And then a few weeks ago, you went back with a camera crew and literally you're spelunking in the tunnels. Tell us all about that story.
Yeah, I mean, going in the tunnels, it is a creepy feeling. There's some smells in there, and then we had to turn around at one point because there was a warning for CO2. Didn't want to mess with that. But yeah, you mentioned we were there a few months ago. Basically, a whistleblower had reached out to us saying that criminals, like you said, were driving cars underground there so that they would lose cell reception and GPS tracking. And then at night, they would bring them back out of the tunnels, strip them for parts, and then sell those parts. And there's this belief that it's possibly connected to a major homeless problem in the area. But I guess that story, it got over 1 million views on YouTube. So it somehow made it to the Assistant Secretary of the Army, Adam Tell, who made it a point to want to clear up the area. He said it was on federal property, and really they weren't going to put up with it. So basically they, since that report in the fall, have cleared out more than 230 homeless encampments within Whittier Narrows and 19,000 cubic yards of trash. Law enforcement admits that they've seen stolen vehicles in that tunnel. They couldn't go as far as to say whether or not there's any sort of organized crime ring, but just judging on comments on social media from these reports that I've been doing, I don't think people would be too surprised if that is happening.
I mean, it got to the point where certain people call that area the Bermuda Triangle. Things go in there and they just disappear.
Exactly, yeah. There's things that just happen there, and it's definitely not a place you want to be overnight, I'd say. It gets a little sketchy, a little dicey.
Now, here's a question that I have for you, because we get a lot of people who listen to this radio show, not just in Southern California, but Northern California. And we do get the question like, hey, I've got a situation that's going on that the city's not doing anything about, whether it is something like an encampment that's out of control or a prostitution, what have you, some kind of issue where the city's not doing anything. And we always say the only way to get the city to do the right thing sometimes is to embarrass them by having the local news cover it. So if there's anybody that has something that they want to bring to a place like Fox 11, what's the easiest way to get in touch if they have tips of news stories? Because it seems like people are reaching out to you guys all the time with these incredible things that you're breaking first.
Yeah, I'd say please reach out to me. You can reach out to me on Instagram at Matt Seedorff, 2 E's, 2 F's, as you were saying, or my email address, which is attached to the Instagram. But yeah, I mean, I rely on people to send me these tips, and it seems like one story will lead to another story and more people reaching out. So I did the MacArthur Park story, and then I was in Hollywood the next day because someone reached out. So we do rely on people to let us know when these sort of things are happening so we can do our best to shine light on it and get it to be fixed.
Now, you've been with Fox 11 since 2024, and I have very much enjoyed seeing you on our local airways. Before that, you worked at KRIV in Houston, and you won a Texas Emmy Award for breaking news coverage. What is the difference between reporting on news? Because Houston is another huge city, but what's the big difference between reporting on the news in Texas as opposed to Southern California?
You know what it is? I feel like the stories in general. So I actually told my family this the other night when I was leaving that park in Hollywood with all the drug and gang activity. I feel like neighbors there are so used to that park being a problem that they've almost given up. Whereas when I was in Houston, a story like that, I mean, if someone complained, it's going to be on the news almost immediately. So I feel like that's the biggest difference, where it's almost like people are used to MacArthur Park being the way that it is. So they've just accepted it. They're not willing to, ask questions as to like, how do we get this fixed? So, I think just trying to push for those sort of, not accepting the realities that we currently are in as to, maybe we can make this better.
Well, and that is why I think your job is so important, and the other local reporters and the local TV stations especially. You know, radio can do their thing, newspapers can do their thing, but when you see the images of the failures of local government, sometimes that's the kick that they need to actually do the right thing. And we really, really appreciate you shining a light on so much nonsense. You'll never run out of coverage covering this city. There's never going to be a slow day. Last question I have for you before you go, Matthew Seedorff, reporter from Fox 11. Was it your idea to go cover the El Segundo mosquito outbreak?
That was another situation where a resident reached out to me actually on Instagram. And yeah, absolutely. I'm going to, if they have a concern or something that's going on and they feel like maybe city leaders are brushing it under the rug or not enough is being done to fix it, then I'm going to try to go out there and help them out. So yes, it was my idea. I brought some bug spray along with me. I had a jacket on, and the cameraman behind the scenes also willing to go out there and put on the bug spray or go into the tunnels with me. They're extremely helpful. So shout out to them.
I got to imagine sometimes that when you decide that you're going out for a story and you've got your cameraman, they look at you in the eye. It's like, oh no, what is he bringing me to today?
I'm sure I have a little bit of a reputation with the photographers. Like, oh boy, I'm with Matthew today. But it's I think they enjoy it. It's always a new challenge every single day, and I really do appreciate everything that they do. Not only just the work, but keeping us safe. And we always have each other's backs in these situations too.
I love hearing that. Well, we love your reporting, and we're so excited to see it here for years and years and years. Matt Seedorff at Fox 11. You can get him on X or Instagram at Matt Seedorff, 2 E's, 2 S. And if you've got tips, this is the guy you want to go to because he is breaking stories left and right in Southern California. Matthew Seedorff, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll definitely be talking again.
Thank you so much, Randy. Love the show. And, please keep those tips coming. Appreciate it.
There you go, everyone. Matthew Seedorff from Fox 11. Love that guy. It's Randy Wang. It's Randy Wang here. My thanks again to Matthew Seedorff from Fox 11 for coming on. That all of that was Marla Tejas' idea. When she was on with us the other day, she's like, I'll get you in touch with him because his reports are fascinating. But I also love that we do have, these are the people, if you've got tips, if there's something going on and your local government is failing you, it's the local TV. We can do something here, but the reach that our local TV has and the fact that you can really put an image on it is so important. And they do a great job there. Of course, not just Matt Seedorff, but Fox 11 is the home of one of our favorite reporters of all time, Ed Laskos.
They should think again.
They've got a great team over there, and we love our local news stations in Southern California and Northern California, and one of the mission statements of this show is to feature it. We feature so many great reporters up and down the state of California because there are, as much as you hear the lame argument, the media doesn't do anything, the media is dead. Yeah, national media is a waste of your time. Do you ever hear us playing clips from any national shows? Do you ever hear us playing clips from CNN outside of Alex or Fox or MSNBC or whatever the hell they're calling it now? But local journalism still exists, and yeah, it might be nearly dead in newspapers, although the California Globe is making quite an impact in the first couple of days. But the local TV journalism it's still strong, and it is as important as ever. Radio journalism doesn't really exist the way it used to, but TV journalism surely does. And that's why we can highlight it, Instead of having a newsroom, I just go on YouTube and I play all of this stuff for you. And I love doing that every single day. You know what else I love? Live remotes. And we're going back to one of our favorite places, Gladstone's in Long Beach, a week from tomorrow. Friday, February 6th from noon to 3, we're heading to Gladstone's in Long Beach for our next live broadcast, and you are invited. Orange County, you're coming out. Long Beach, you're coming out. LA, you're coming out. Hell, Bay Area. Fly to Long Beach Airport. We're real close. Come enjoy the great food, good vibes, and a fun afternoon by the water. We'll have special guests like Susan Shelley from the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association. She'll tell you more about your taxpayer rights and protecting Prop 13. By the way, Susan Shelley will be on this show tomorrow. The courts have made it easier to raise your taxes. We need you to come by and sign the petition to save Prop 13. The deadline is coming fast. SaveProp13.com. That's SaveProp13.com. Come hang out with us, grab a bite, and be part of the broadcast. The John Phillips Show, live at Gladstone's in Long Beach, Friday, February 6th. We got a half hour to go, and then I get to go sit on the freeway. Johnny's back on Monday. It's Randy Wang here, and I'll be here until 3 o'clock. Then I go sit on the 405, suffer, contemplate my life decisions, have a little lunch once I finally get home, do a little prep, and then I'm back on the air at 5 o'clock on our Southern California station, 790 KABC, from 5 to 6 for a little show we call the News Blitz with Randy Wang. If you're in the Bay Area and you want to give it a listen, just go to KABC.com, or you can download the podcast by going to KABC.com/newsblitz. Gavin Newsom spent the afternoon at the Bloomberg Newsmakers Conference and was asked about the wealth tax, something that he doesn't support, but still is hurting California every single day with just its potential passage. Let's see what Gavi had to say about the wealthy.
Okay, let me ask about the wealth tax, and then we'll open this up. So folks in this room probably know the California Health Care Union has proposed a wealth tax on the 200 billionaires in the state.
And again, like we keep telling you about with Prop 13, because it's a union that puts this on the ballot, it only needs 50% support, not 2/3 support, even for something that is legally dubious as asset seizure.
A wealth tax on the 200 billionaires in the state, 5% of their net worth over 5 years. You've come out against it. But what they're trying to address, what they say they're trying to address, is a shortfall in Medi-Cal caused by H.R. 1, the One Big Beautiful Act. Do you agree that Medi-Cal, that the state health care system isn't endangered by this federal law, and what should we do about it, if a wealth tax?
Yeah, H.R. 1 is a disaster. I mean, just talk about your kids and grandkids who sat on them, debt, burden, interest rates.
Now, to be fair, Gavin, Medi-Cal was broke before H.R. 1, and Medi-Cal is broke after H.R. 1.
Instability. I mean, I saw the same Besson guy would say, well, the deficit's down a couple. He didn't even mention the cost of the big, beautiful bill and how that's going to.
Medi-Cal is so generous. I know people who have contemplated working less and making almost no money because the Medi-Cal benefits are so much better than the healthcare plans you have to start paying for.
And how
that's a bad thing.
And how that's going to impact the debt and
so
deficits.
what do we, if not asking the richest among us to pay, what do we do?
Well, we do. California has the most progressive tax structure in the United States of America.
There are billionaires who are sitting on equity who don't sell it,
We have
who are paying a lower
billionaires
tax rate.
that are paying those progressive taxes. We have the highest progressive tax rate in the United States of America. I long believe in that. I did sit a state of the state arguing in favor of it, and it should in many ways be a model for reforms that we need to see federally.
Although, because we rely so much on the high earners and capital gains, when the stock market does well, we do pretty well. When the stock market doesn't do well, we're screwed.
That said, I fear the way this has been drafted. And I'm old-fashioned. I actually seek first to understand before I'm understood. Sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I was burdened by the facts. The fact is, it actually will reduce investments in education. It will reduce investments in teachers.
Well, yeah, because all the money's going to go to the SEIU.
And librarians, childcare. It will reduce investments in firefighting.
And by the way, all the things that he's talking about are that the state has all of this mandatory funding for certain programs like education, which you understand, but also shouldn't that funding be somewhat flexible if we're seeing an enrollment decline because nobody in this state can afford to have kids? Then there's also the people that just don't want to have kids, myself included.
In firefighting and police. The impact of a one-time tax does not solve an ongoing structural challenge that has been exacerbated by the impacts of H.R. 1. In fact, what it will do is what the Legislative Analyst's Office said it would do, which didn't surprise any of us when they put that out. You would have a windfall one time, and then over the years, you would see a significant reduction in taxes because taxpayers will move.
And what happens then? We know what happens then. Sure, this is a tax against the 100 or 200 billionaires in the state of California. But when they're gone and the state has a giant hole in their budget, who are they coming after? They're coming after who's left. And that's when taxes have to go up for the middle class, because the last thing California is going to do with current management is cut their budget.
And that is what I fear at a state level. At a state level.
Right. So would you support a national
I think
wealth
you
tax?
can have. That's an interesting conversation. It's a challenging one too. There's some constitutional issues around takings. There's impact as it relates to the flow of capital. The impacts on the market, which are not inconsequential. If you told me.
And by the way, it's good that Gavin is saying this, but he only talks about this when he's asked about it. He's not out there openly campaigning against it, even though people are already contemplating on moving or have moved because of the regressive nature of this, of that somehow if it passes, it's retroactive back to January 1st, 2026. Again, I don't know how any of this is legal, but I guess we just pass it and see what happens.
If you told me you're going to have a one-time, where do you mark to market? How do you audit? Do we go in and find out, for those that are in this tax bracket, when did you buy your Basquiat? You sure it was 1971 or was it 1991?
Also, how forceful does Gavin want to be on this powerful union when he might need their help in a couple years?
Markets have adjusted. Where's the wine collection, sir? Let me look again. Hold on. Mark to market. Wait a second. So you haven't sold your stuff. But all these things, it gets complicated. I'm not suggesting, I'm not here to belittle it, argue. I think the imbalance, I said it, the state of the state, the imbalance between the rich and the poor is the oldest and most fatal ailment of all republics. That was Plutarch. 2,000 years ago.
I listen to a lot of Gavin, more than I should, more than is safe for my mental health, whether it's his podcast or anytime he's interviewed. He says the same stuff over and over and over again. I have heard him say the name Plutarch 1,000 times, and I don't think I'm exaggerating.
10% of people own 2/3 of the wealth in the United States of America. This is not working. 30-year-old.
Well, now it sounds like you're advocating for it. So what are you doing?
30-year-olds, never done worse. 30-year-old today.
And including in your state where you've been in charge for 8 years. So what are you doing about that?
Than any generation in history.
You want to talk about the crisis among young men, which Gavin does like to talk about. How about just the despair that's out there of knowing that, well, I'm never going to be able to afford to buy a home here?
Than any generation in history.
Not me. But again, the only way I could afford to buy a home here was help from the in-laws. And that's with my wife's salary and my salary. That's how expensive the barrier to entry is.
Than any generation in history. This is not working. You've got to democratize our economy if you're going to save democracy. Absolutely. But this proposal by one local in SEIU, I do not believe is the answer.
Will it get to the ballot?
They have the money. I don't, and we'll see.
Yeah.
So at what point do you start exerting pressure as the governor of California, or does this not matter because it takes effect when you're not governor anymore?
There's a lot of leverage in this. I think he's got 3 ballot initiatives. This is, by the way, someone said to me, you need to veto this. I said, well, I can't because it's not legislative.
Not how it works.
And by the way, legislature's not.
Yes, but you can put pressure on the union or work out something because they obviously want something. Maybe they don't want this. Maybe they want some other kind of giveaway. But this is what happens when certain unions hold way too much power in the state of California.
And by the way, legislature's not promoting this. This is an individual with money. And so I had someone, you'll appreciate this, true story. It was a Zoom with a bunch of fancy folks and outraged. So, we've got to reform this direct democracy. It's outrageous. Anyone could get something on the ballot. I said, just like you got the recall on the ballot.
He's still pissed about that.
He dropped off the screen.
Something happens when you get recalled. I mean, it really, the level of rejection, you either can realize, and he didn't even successfully get recalled, but just having the recall against him has put such a chip on his shoulder where you are constantly out to settle the score. Just like recalled Alameda County DA Pamela Price.
She called me a crime boss.
What do you know? The high-speed rail that's supposed to go from San Francisco to Los Angeles isn't the only high-speed rail breaking promises. Do you remember how there was all this talk about, hey, we've got this privately funded high-speed rail line that's supposed to go from Southern California by the means of Victorville to Las Vegas, and it's going to be ready by the 2028 Olympics. The second that was announced, I said, no, it's not. And what do you know? We find out the high-speed rail from L.A. to Vegas that was promised by the 2028 Summer Olympics won't be open till at least the end of 2029. And I expect many more delays. For more, here's Fox 5 in Las Vegas.
New tonight, Fox 5 getting answers about the first true high-speed rail system in America. The timeline for the line connecting Las Vegas to Southern California is set to run 218 miles in the median of the Interstate 15.
When you're doing massive construction projects, apparently the goal is, especially when you have, and this started with private money, but then it got public money. Biden put some money into this thing. It is overpromise and underdeliver.
Brightline West tells Fox 5 the train project is now on track to be complete by late 2029. Kim is here with the latest.
Get Joe working.
Noah, this whole idea of, hey, tourists are going to come all the way out here, and after they get bored by the Olympic events, they're going to take the train to Vegas so they can bet on the Olympic events. It's not happening.
Get Joe, work is underway at the site of the future Las Vegas train station off the I-15 near the 215. But Brightline tells us that there is no definite date on the tracks being laid. Tonight, we take a look back at the journey of Brightline West to date.
Back in 2018, Brightline acquired Express West, a local company trying to get a rail project up and running for years that had made some progress with permits.
I feel like it takes so long to build rail in this country, let alone this state, that by the time these things get done, the Sepulveda Pass train that's going to go under the mountains, the high-speed rail, if it ever does get completed just in the Central Valley, let alone LA to San Francisco or Sacramento to San Diego or Southern California to Vegas, like by the time these things are already built, we're going to have some kind of monumental, game-changing event that's going to completely change the way transportation is done.
In 2020, the high-speed rail project, then set between Las Vegas and Victorville, was given the okay by California. Caltrans entering a lease agreement allowing Brightline to build in the median of I-15. In June 2021, Brightline announced the company was delaying the project until 2022 due to COVID-19. When travel resumed, and with traffic jams nearly every weekend at State Line,
we have to get people out of their cars. So that means finding...
Or, take that flight. The flight out of Burbank is not that cheap, but it is very exciting, especially if you fly on the Thursday. You fly that Burbank to Vegas Thursday night flight on Southwest, it is mostly strippers. Flight back is a little more depressing. Flights out of LAX, though, to Vegas are very, very cheap. Ontario to Vegas, very, very cheap.
So that means finding an alternative way to get to Las Vegas.
In December 2021, then Governor Sisolak met with California Governor Gavin Newsom to discuss expanding the I-15,
which never happened. Another big, bold declaration from Gavin Newsom that went nowhere. And unlike a lot of other highways, there's plenty of room to expand on the 15. There's nothing out there. It's a bunch of desert with a 2-lane highway. Come on, let's go.
Adding an extra lane on the California side, which Newsom said would be ready within months.
We'll be done by this summer, and I'm holding them to account. That's on me.
4 years later, that third lane has never been added.
If I had enough time and energy, I would go through the last 8 years of bold promises from Gavin Newsom. And by the way, whoever is orchestrating the campaign against him, if he does run in 2028, that's all you got to do. Forget all of the ideology, forget the mean tweets, what have you. Here's all you need to do to take down Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom at a press conference announcing something incredible and nothing happening. Gavin and the governor of Nevada 4 years ago being like, we're going to widen the 15 freeway. We're going to add a lane. Never happened. Gavin, CareCord's going to completely change the way we do mental health care. Reality. That's helped about 24 people because it's voluntary.
4 years later, that third lane has never been added, though the shoulder can now be used as a travel lane during heavy traffic. That day, both governors
that doesn't count.
That day, both governors also pledged to bring the Brightline line to fruition to get millions of people off of the road and onto the rails. In 2020.
And by the way, when they first came out with this train, they had an estimated price of like $400 a ticket. Are you crazy? The plane ride's faster and cheaper. It's like there's no thought that goes into any of this.
In 2023, Brightline was given the green light from the federal government. President Biden came to Las Vegas to announce $3 billion in funding for the high-speed line.
So this thing was on track to be done by 2028. Then it gets this infusion of cash to speed up the project. And now it's going to take even longer.
Harry Reid, I told you 35 years ago to get this sucker done. We're getting it done. It's on track to be completed by the 2028 Olympics.
Nope.
In Los Angeles.
Bright line!
I remember that.
In April 2024, groundbreaking. And throughout 2024 and 2025, fieldwork was conducted from southern Nevada to southern California in the median of the I-15 and off of the interstate, like in Sloan, just south of the Vegas Valley, at what will be Brightline's vehicle maintenance facility. In October 2025, Fox 5 visited the site of the future train station just south of the Strip, where construction was well underway. Now in 2026, as seen from the Fox 5 drone, the parking garage of the Las Vegas station is quickly taking shape.
We're building a parking garage. Look at us.
And though the goal had once been to have the line up and running by the 2028 Summer Olympics, again, Fox has confirmed that it is now late 2029.
This is like the people mover for LAX that was supposed to be done in 2023. Nope. 2024. Nope. 2025. Nope. Here we are in 2026 and this thing's still not ready.
Brightline says that right now they are still in the civil construction phase, prepping the I-15 and the land around it. Joe?
So I don't know what's going on here. I don't know if we just go ahead and promise phony baloney dates for all kinds of projects because then the public will support them, or we really don't know. And we have no idea how much these things will cost because labor and materials go up every single year, which then makes these things take longer. But I am so tired of being told we're going to get something shiny and then being told maybe next year, maybe next year, maybe next year. I don't think that thing's going to be done by 2030. Thank you all so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure. Now is the worst part of my day, because I get to go sit on the 405 for an hour to go 17 miles, have a little lunch, and then dial remotely into the station to do my 5 o'clock show. The News Blitz with Randy Wang. If you're here in Los Angeles, give it a listen. It comes on right after Frank Motek. If you're in the Bay Area and you want to hear it, stream it at KABC.com or download the KABC app. We'll see you tomorrow for a Jimmy Buffett Friday edition of The John Phillips Show.